My name is Jim Ryan, and I'm the new instructional designer here at EWU. My job here is to take a look at the programs, courses, and people from a different point of view, to see how all these Lego pieces fit, and to imagine how I can help put them together differently to make something new and amazing. Welcome to the Play to Learn podcast. Today, I'm talking with Kirk Reinkens, the design technician at the 4D Lab in the EWU Catalyst Campus in downtown Spokane. Kirk has a rich background in engineering, tinkering, and creating. We had a great conversation about all the wonderful things going on in the design lab. Also, side note, since summer is here, the podcast may be releasing less frequently as faculty and staff are taking a little bit of a breather. But be patient, more will be on the way. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Okay, cool.
So hi, I'm here with Kirk, and how do you pronounce your last name?
Reinkens.
Reinkens, okay. And I'm Jim Ryan, and we're here talking about what's going on at Catalyst and what you do here at Catalyst.
Sure, you bet.
Go ahead.
So I'm the design technician for the Department of Design. Again, their primary degrees they offer in visual communication design with emphasis areas in animation and, of course, visual communication itself. They do courses in bookmaking, zines, photography, all kinds of stuff that are new to me.
But you have a pretty diverse educational background. Why don't you go back? Let's go back in time, back in history.
Sure.
When Kirk was just a little Kirk, and then he became the Kirk we see today.
Sure, you bet. So I do have a farm background. As I was smaller, Dad was a maintenance engineer, and so lots of experience building and making things on the farm, and so that led me toward an engineering career. My twin and I built more things that don't work well. And by the time we were 16, then most people would build in their lifetime. So anyway, so I got an electrical engineering degree, did 6 years of research and development with the Boeing company, moved into the Hanford site doing procedures and facility engineering out on the Hanford site. And then stumbled into getting a teaching degree as well for K through 8 and moved into high school outreach with the MESA program and the K-12 system. And then a long stint following that one was teaching first-year engineers, which has been my kind of my place. And so that brought me around to, I've run Makerspaces and this small print shop and kind of makerspace that is associated with the Department of Design and sees them is where I'm at now.
So what kind of makerspaces do you run here specifically, and what do you do in those makerspaces?
Sure. So primarily, because it's visual communication design, they have printing options for students. Classic large format printers for posters and those kinds of things. We keep on hand good quality paper if you need to do a photo that's large as well. We've got kind of a really cool, I wouldn't say it's new, but the tech isn't widely used, a risograph printer, which is a mix from an old school screen-based printer for paper. The risograph automates that system, and you have a variety of inks, and usually we have a 2-drum system, so you can get 2 color prints out of it, and more if you want to run the paper through again. So the risograph is a very fun and creative platform for printing. And so there's a lot of community interest. We have one of the, I think 2 or 3 in the state. There's 1 or 2 maybe in Seattle, one down in Portland area. So it's a fun one. What else do we do? We do silly things, button making. People do communication activities on, hey, what can you get on this button and what kind of message you're sending. They do different type of typography prints for instructions, prints for sporting events, arranging things. So all kinds of fun stuff that I'm being introduced to. Of course, we're going to trim and treat whatever products they're generating. But we just recently added a laser cutter. 80-watt CO2 laser cutter allows us to trim and mark and engrave on a wide variety of things. I recently tried something new, marking on stainless steel, and so that's another option. I had a community member come in, hey, I'd like to mark these things with some names for and kind of a memorial item. So they're going to come in, and we're going to do that at some point too.
So a lot of the print and typography and stuff that you focus on here in the design part, stuff that people don't really notice, like it's not really in the forefront of their minds until they see it in front of them, and they don't know the process that it takes to go through to get to that point. Because it's on products that we use every day. This water bottle I have has, I know, a little pattern on it. It's everywhere, but people don't notice it. But we take in all this information, and being able to put it into a pleasing format is a really important skill to have if you're going into design.
Absolutely. I was stumbling with this the other day. So we're working on a small camp on bookmaking or zine making for middle school students. And so I'm thinking about what the instructors and stuff are hoping we can do with the students. But in my own life, I got a new Samsung watch for myself. Well, the instructional notebook was a little tiny unfolding zine. I mean, we've all seen them, but, just how much information gets squeezed into that and how readable is it based on its format and how it unfolds. And then I was helping my daughter put a new backup camera on her vehicle just yesterday. And that thing is a different type of zine, unfolded a different way, and had the English and the other languages and made it pretty reasonable and easy to follow. And so we take those kinds of things for granted. Right.
I mean, instructions come with every single product that's being sold. And how do you pack all that information in the most efficient way possible, but keep it readable and keep it understandable?
Right. I think that our own students have a lot of opportunities here in the design department to not only do the creative things maybe that drew them to design, but also to impact other industries, right, with taking their understanding of organization, and they're working with clients to find out what they need. They have a great opportunity to do some pretty cool stuff as they move out of here.
So one thing that has happened and we've noticed over time is, like, back in the day when like high-waisted jeans or like maybe bell bottoms were in style, and then they go out of style for a number of decades, and then they kind of come back weirdly enough. And I think that same kind of thing might be also happening with books and print versus digital. So we had a lot of focus back in the 90s and 2000s about books and all the processes that went into making the physical items there. And then as digital came in, it kind of got pushed by the wayside. People started listening more to audiobooks. People started just reading content online. But then it comes back. It does come back.
Well, yeah, I'd say that. So this is a new environment for me still. But the kind of that zine making world where people should create their own stories. We had a resident in our risograph residency where they came in and made the art and the story associated with an old Medusa themed story. But the artwork was really cool, and then the storyline was also shown through that artwork. So coming back, and there's so many throughout the region. Again, I'm not the specialist, but every spring there's a zine activity where our students prep the same way other community members do and have zines to sell or share or whatever. And then maybe they'll do some buttons or whatever to do as well. So some of that making and doing piece, people are always drawn to that, but it does go in cycles. I have to agree that it's easy to get drawn away by the excellent technology that we have available to us. But also there's some of that, I just want to put this together.
And one of those things I can speak to is that I'd had to make a cards deck for this game I was making.
You bet.
And it was silly. It's a very silly game, but it's a fun game for a group of people to play. And I had never seen the process. You see card games like Magic the Gathering, for example, and they have these very ornate cards, and they have rounded edges, and they have put all this thought into the design of it. And so I had designed these cards in Photoshop, but I didn't really know what the whole process was for making them physical. It's easy to have it on the screen.
Oh, it looks great.
Yeah, it looks great on the screen, but when you have to put it in somebody's hand, well, it has to get there somehow. So you have to print it out in a certain pattern. You have to take that great cutting machine that you have there in the back and slice them perfect. Make sure you got everything lined up, or it's going to look all wonky. And then you got to cut those corners off of every single card in order to make them all look uniform. quite perfect, but they were close enough. I still have to learn how to use
Yeah, prototype, eh?
Yeah, right, prototype.
Prototype. I'm a big prototype fan.
But it was a very active learning experience and exciting for me. And I was totally drawn into the process once you had to kick me out of that cutting machine room because somebody else needed these.
Right. And those are things that we try, the department has. So related to that, one thing, these things can be tedious, right? Like trimming off all the corners or whatever. And so I've had the chance to kind of play around with, we've got this new laser cutter. What could it do? So I've been working on, for one of our other camps, our animation camp that we're going to do for middle schoolers, they're going to create a digital animation, a short one. But we're also want to have them do a flip book. And we found a example online of a crank style flip book, and it twists, it just flips over the images, cut the images in half and print them front to back correctly, and away you go. But cutting them is tedious. But if we do the layout right, I can set it up on the laser cutter, index it, and then the laser cutter cuts all of them in 30 seconds. So with the nice round curves that we might need or whatever. And so I like this mix of tech and old school stuff. It's reassuring.
So if I print out a bunch of those cards today, could we put them on the laser?
I could show you exactly how to do that.
That'd be cool, because going at those corners with that little trimmer the
laser's going to have characteristics, right? It'll burn the edges.
Oh, sure, but that's kind of character.
Yes, yeah. And so that's part of, I mentioned the risograph earlier. It's not an exacting print process. And so that and the burning, these things, they can add character to whatever you do. And it's an attribute that people build on and use. I will say that the burning is necessarily it. But like I had a student last term in our game design class, which is a camp we're going to do for the middle schoolers, a board game redesign. They're going to take an older board game and put their own spin on it. Maybe Connect 4 or actually I'm not much of a board game, but our faculty members given us a few ideas of key games that work. And so we're playing with that. But last term, we had a student did a nice board game box, a wood one. And so we practiced engraving on it, like where the feet were going to be, just to see how the color and the settings need to be. And then we did a nice burn into the wood cover of the box. And so it's a mix of that new tech allowing us to do allowing the students, participants to do nice design stuff.
Yeah, there's a number of professors on the main campus of EWU who are big into Dungeons and Dragons. They're awesome to talk to. We can just go into conversations for hours. And there's rumblings about having a game design degree. I mean, it's just floating the idea out there. But that would be really nifty, because if that was the case, you would have a university that offers the entire width and breadth of what goes into making a game. I mean, there comes from the storytelling aspect, the philosophy, the ethics, the mathematics behind it, the computer science that goes into it, the physical creation of the content for that game.
Our programs have quite a few of those characteristics built in. The work that Meg and Colin are doing in that area, it's really fun to watch the students. And then Sam does storytelling, which they work up little GIFs of a story and they add some little voiceover. That's the space has some really great opportunities. We have a voice recording room that allows them to do those sounds and those kinds of things that go along with the animation side too, because gaming, animation, they have relationships that are pretty strong. So
there's all these little dots that get connected or that aren't connected that should be connected, and the whole trick, the whole game, the big game is finding how to connect all those little dots and make them into one big picture.
You bet. You mentioned the D&D.
Right.
So yeah, one of our deans has come down and said, hey, can you print this for either his family's gaming or another group's gaming? So we printed a few good sized maps, which of course you don't need them for Dungeons and Dragons, but they sure add a little flavor to the experience.
It's definitely immersive, and it's really active learning on so many sides. It's active learning on even his part, because he maybe either gets to create it or go find these maps that help make the world more immersive for the people that he's holding this event for. It's does the same thing for them, and he gets to learn the process to how the whole thing works.
Yeah, it made me think of the maps you see on the, like, I'm a fantasy book reader, probably. It's my primary venue. But the books cover the maps inside the back covers or whatever. They help you visualize things. And so, and the same thing goes with gaming, and you had these other visual elements, and it adds to it.
Yeah, it gives the person experiencing a sense of context that's really hard to do just with words sometimes.
Right, yeah. And so that's interesting, the combinations and things that people in design or in general have to worry about. Like, I have a sister who's blind. Well, the audiobooks are the only way to go for her. And you can tell a difference on who's the reader, right? We find the same thing ourselves, but it's even more important for a person who's limited sensory, in that way. So I've actually spent, we found a book that we couldn't get on audio, and I spent, several hours reading this particular book. And I find myself trying to emote the way good artists do on that side of the house. I'm not there yet.
Well, that's okay, but that's amazing, and that also speaks to being able to present content in the different mediums that are required, especially for people who have issues with sight or with hearing. You have to consider those different things when you're presenting your content to them.
Yeah, it's a strong area for, if you address their communication needs, those who are different, it helps us all in general. Right? Because then, that if you think about their situation, that also helps other people. Typically, you'll find a place for it elsewhere.
Well, I way prefer audiobooks over physical books, just for me, because I listen to them, on the way to work or while I'm doing chores or whatnot. Like, I'm currently listening to Dungeons and Daddies. I don't know if you've heard about them, but it's not like what it sounds like. It's actually a D&D campaign of a bunch of guys that are dads, but also they're playing dads that got transported from our world into the D&D realm, and they lost their children, and their whole mission is to go and find their children, and it's a very hilarious thing to listen to. And then I'm waiting for Dungeon Crawler Carl, my next credit on what is it, Audacity, or what, the audiobook Audible, to come up on tomorrow, actually. So I'll get to start that one tomorrow. But it's another great example, and like, all my friends were listening to the audiobook, and some of them have read it, and they were just, because it was such a good job. And then I started listening to it, and I'm just like, I'm into it now. Right. But I could not sit down for the life of me and open a physical book, and have to read it, because it would require all my focus.
Yeah, I haven't read a new book in a while. The most recent one was the one that happened to be, it's a Tamara Pierce book called Shatter Class, part of the Circle Reforge series. Anyways, it's a lot of magic and that kind of stuff in those books, but excellent. Female protagonist is very strong in that group of series. So funny stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool. So are coming at all of this. It seems like it's from a completely different world, from the engineering world, working at, in a nuclear facility, working at Boeing,
right?
And then you're in this very artistic field over here. So how is that bridge going for you? And what do you see that comes from the engineering part that could be more utilized within the artistic expression?
I think the connections, again, there are things we don't always recognize. Each of these experiences are problem-solving oriented. My previous work, putting together the Frank Innovation Zone at WSU and establishing that, was about getting students connected to more hands-on stuff while they're trying to do particularly so that they could be ready when senior design projects came up in the engineering environment. But here, you're solving problems, but they're communication problems. And, so it's still about that problem-solving nature. And what tools can you use to do that? Particularly me, like the making side of this connects particularly into the board games, and I'm learning more about the animation world. So it really is, how can we do these things maybe differently or whatever? Like the animation camp we're working on, I'm still learning the process, but if we streamline everything and everything's all digital, that's one thing. But how much do we need some of the Adobe suite? Do they need to do it all for these students, or should we show them some of the under the hood stuff that's happening? Because if you know about that stuff, you build skills that are transportable or can be applied in different areas. I'm concerned about it being hidden behind. So I like when the problem solving comes out and everybody can see what's going on.
Well, what people don't know when it comes to animation is there is so much engineering that went into the original animation styles, especially when you're talking about Walt Disney and like Snow White. They had to have these multi-layer films and a camera.
It's funny you mentioned that.
And then they had, like for a bath.
The multi-plane camera.
Exactly, multi-plane camera. And so they'd have to move these different layers of the background to show foreground versus background, because when you're looking at motion that's lateral to you, whatever is closest to you is going to be moving the fastest versus whatever's farther away is going to be moving slower.
So you mentioned that. When I first got here, Janelle, the leader of our animation elements or of the programs here, said, "Hey, can we make one of these?" And so in the last year, we put one together. We have a multiplane camera. Get out of here! Not kidding you. So what we haven't had a chance to is, it's running our normal programs takes time, right? And so now we need to find a way to put that into the program so the students can see that if you're in the central plane for the character and the foreground is going to move at one speed, the background's going to move at another, and practice with that. Because once you practice with it, your understanding changes, and then you can think more productively in the digital world.
Yeah, and so that whole thing got me interested when I first saw it with Walt Disney, and I knew I couldn't do a multiplane, that kind of animation. So, but the process, when I understood how they do the process, that helped me do animation for video.
Sure.
So I would create a background, let's say, with AI, just like let's say like a moon in space or whatever for sci-fi stuff, and it would create this space, and then I would have to define the foreground, the midground, and the background in Photoshop, chop those areas out, and then fill out the area behind those, so those different layers, and then I could move them individually and then create that same kind of illusion.
Yep.
And it really made a huge difference. I was looking at this animation that I made, and I'm like, wow, it feels like that's a real thing now.
Right. That's the same transition that people felt when the first, I forget which movie really utilized the multiplane camera. It says it's obviously, you'll look it up, but that realness, to add a sense of realness to the animated cartoons, right, back in that time. And so we're doing that same thing now, only digitally, adding that sense of realness to that motion. And so my son happens to be an animator with Warner Brothers, and so I hear a lot about what they're doing and how they're building worlds and that kinds of stuff. So,
and it goes beyond just that, because and you have one thing I noticed is there's a lot of 3D printers, like in your office, in this Makerspace and upstairs and whatnot. I haven't seen them in use that much, but I think they're very underutilized.
So yeah, we have two here in the 4D lab space. I happen to have brought my personal one in. It has the function to do a little higher quality. And I brought it in because a game design course, they wanted to do, it's a great thing. They're mixing AI. So they do an AI, they work interactively with AI to create a character. And then they export that character. I think they usually do it into Blender. Mm-hmm. And then and then they clean up that video, and then I talk them through how do you make it more printable. And so we were able to print a handful of different characters that were developed by a student through an interactive process for a game. And so we printed those small characters.
That is really cool.
So that mix of AI, the student physical control over the drawing that needs to be done, which it's a learning curve because they haven't printed before. Usually.
Right.
And so, hey, what makes a good print? You need a nice base to sit it down on the plate. So put a coin underneath that figure and give it something to stand on or whatever, right? And so we just recently did a garbage goat model for someone did a garbage goat. They were going to sell some figurines. So we've did that too. That's on that Zine Fest thing that I was talking about earlier. We're also the student was selling these things.
Right. And I've seen this model for mixed reality where there will be like this projector that's hanging over a table, or there could be maybe a table that has like a touchscreen television or something on it, but there's also a camera next to the projector.
Sure.
And there would be like a map on the table, and people could have these figurines, and with the combination of the projector and the camera and the figurines and a computer interface, obviously, people could place those physical figurines, and it would change what is being projected on the map, per se. And so I don't know where I'm going with this, but I know there's a way to really enhance, like we've been talking about, that context, that experience that people are having between reality and digital, and make it more interactive and active learning environment.
Right. Yeah. So that kind of interactive design, it's all about sensors too. That's where the tech pulls its way back into some of these gaming type environments. The tech is needed in order to make this new, cool, more interactive environment.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's fabulous.
So now you've already built up this amazing place, and you have some students that are going to be coming in from grade schools, right?
Yeah. We've got 3 middle school camps, one on zine and bookmaking. These are 4-day camps, run about 9 to 2:30-ish. So we're hoping to have students come down and spend some time with a couple of our instructors and mix some of that hands-on and digital, depending on which one we're doing. We've got, again, a bookmaking or zine making. We've got introduction to animation. They're going to mix some, capture video, parse it out, convert it into a risograph type printing environment, and then push it back into the digital side. So you're remaking a video sequence and practicing some of those skills. It's really cool. Yeah, it was a great idea. We like stealing ideas and using them in other ways. So we're putting together the details. They'll also fabricate a little flip book for their animations. So not just their digital, they'll also get to make something that shows it off by hands. And then our last one is the bookmaking one. So putting your own twist on a classic game of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
So Connect 4, and I'm sorry, I forget the other 4 games, but yeah, we're going to do those. So coming up here in a couple of weeks, or 1 week and a half-ish, on the 14th will be our bookmaking, and then the 28th is our animation, and then in August, on the 11th, we've got our board game.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be so exciting for the kids, and there has to be a way to get the word out, to have this more often,
Yeah, and so our thought was institutionalizing this in some way. So I thought using some of our own students as instructors. This first year, we're mixing one of our recent graduates and our faculty member are leading it. But I think in the long term, giving a couple of our students a chance to teach and lead these types of activities over the summer gives them a little bit of income, and then also provides the community with a great group of exercises for middle school students. So.
And then hopefully those students will be coming back
through
the our program.
Right. Outreach is like that. We're planting seeds, and for some that will really go crazy, and others they'll say, oh, maybe this isn't for me, but it was fun. Right. And so it's those experiences, as we know, whether it's an engineering experience in mousetrap car making, or making a zine and putting your ideas on it, or creating a notebook for yourself so that you can share your ideas or practice sketches, or one dumb idea a day.
All my ideas are dumb, but they're fun.
So yeah, in my R&D environment, that phrase meant something because we said one dumb idea a day is a joke we did in my Boeing time. But it was more about that if you don't bring up your dumb idea about something, then no one else will be triggered by it. Right. To find a better solution or a better response to your thing. And that worked for us quite a few times, where someone would say, why won't that work? And then you start talking more about, but what if we ignored this and did it this way, right? And so the dumb idea is an affectionate term from my experiences.
I love it. Yeah. I work with another buddy of mine on some physical design concepts and whatnot. And we're always going back and forth on, what if we tried this? What if we tried that? And that collaboration and then, that experimentation is really key.
Right. It's energizing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That interaction with other ideas that push you out of your comfort zone or cause you to rethink what your original idea might have been.
It can change. You can watch the arc of where it started and where it ended up at, and you're like, how did that get from there to there?
Well, it helps you get past I've always done it that way, right? Or this is the way it's always been done by others. Yeah, I have quite a few stories about that kind of thing happening in the R&D environment.
We could probably get that in a second.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I could drive you crazy with whether it's farm stuff or my specialty, not specialty, the group's specialty was lightning protection for aircraft.
Oh, wow.
Which is just something we all, and we know most people don't know about it. What happens to a plane when it gets struck by lightning? Thankfully, nothing.
Yeah.
Right. Because things are taken care of. Right. But we also did other things, so it was fun. That was my very young time as an engineer.
Well, very important too.
Yeah. Good, great stuff.
So this is where things are at now. Where would you like to see things go?
Oh, for the 4D labs, I think that I still got some learning to do on how I can work more closely with the departments and see what their needs with our department and their needs. I see spreading the word, particularly for the programs that are here. I had the opportunity this spring to work with electrical engineering, computer science as well. So making sure their students know about whether it's a poster that they need for a business plan competition. We've done those as well. A student came in on the engineering side. You think that they're going to be hands-on folks, but they don't always have experience either, right? So a student came in, they needed a box. And so showing them how easy it might be done using drawing tools that they weren't exposed to. And that just means that if they can add that skill, right, for their senior design, then a company will see that result and go, wow, they can do finished work. Often the engineers aren't expected to do that. But if for senior design, if you can show off that attention to detail, it's great. And so I think making sure that we push more of the building and making into the curriculum, and they're expecting that here in the department, right? And so that'll be transformative on some things. We're looking to revise the production class. Meg, our faculty member there, just talked to me about, hey, can you help me redo this? And so we're going to do that too. So making sure we're infusing those hands-on activities back into the classroom to the greatest extent possible.
Yeah, I mean, if an engineering student can come here and learn the skills it takes to, enhance whatever product that they're working on with all these visuals, with the text, with the instructions and everything, if they're going to take that to an employer and say, look, this is my product, this is all the materials that go into making that product and the instructions and everything, that makes them much more valuable of an employee.
Oh, same thing for the design students. If they can say, oh, I designed this game, put it all together. The things that were new to me when I did that was this. So now I have the tip of the iceberg on that skill in my pocket and the tip of the iceberg on this other skill. It can help give them confidence to be able to respond to, tell me a little bit more about that. Sometimes that's not easy to answer unless you had the experience. And so that's what I'm looking forward to, is that the students throughout my influence area here can respond to those kinds of questions better.
Well, Kirk, thank you so much for your time. We're going to have more talks about this because I want to hear a lot more about the engineering stuff you did in your past. But just thank you so much for your time.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
Awesome.